Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're good. Hope you can hear me. Hope all is well. As you can see from the usual filter I'm using where it says 12:30, what the hell are you doing on at 12 o'clock? And it's because I cast the net out to some of my favourite folk and said, will you join me on the show to reflect on the year? And too many of them said yes. And so we're doing a double bonus episode in a way, because I've got Farouk, Bello and Evie Martin joining me on the show. First Farouk, then Evie, talking and reflecting on some of the important topics of this year in our final few shows of the year. And tomorrow I've got Rob Bevan, who's coming on, a good friend and colleague of mine, who's a Cairo down south somewhere, and we're going to be talking about some of the business variables of how 2020 has thrown us, and then a bumper show on Friday from 12:30, but I don't know when we'll stop that because we've got a few people joining and we're probably going to have a bit of a panel discussion about all things 2020. But first, Farouk Bello is someone that you should have seen our previous episode together. He's a brilliant thinker coming through the ranks. He's part of our Physio Matters First Steps team, and he's also someone that, as a new graduate, is really thoughtful in those early years situations, really. And 2020 has been one that's thrown everyone off. But you imagine how disruptive it's been for students, new graduates, etc. But also just, for Farouk as a bloke, I just want to get his take on the matter. And that's what Chewing It Over is all for. So I'm really appreciative that he's able to join me. So without further ado, let's see if the tech works all right and I can slide in. Farouk, can you hear me, mate?
Yeah, Jack. How you doing, Jack?
Good. Well, welcome back. We're just joking, weren't we? We said you're a veteran of the podcast now.
Sometimes makes you a veteran automatically.
Yes, Farouk Bello. So I wonder if I can keep it really open to start off with, mate, and just say, what is your hot take on how this year's been?
Oh, this year, to me, honestly, has been one where it's been up and down, I would say. But however, it's for everyone in general, physios, healthcare professionals. It's been a mayhem of a year where everything is switched from what the norm is, and I think this year is going to be a defining point in my life and everyone's life. Where moving forward, it's going to be a lot different in loads of different aspects. You're talking about the care you'll be able to provide. I'm sure you're going to talk that with someone else. Telephone consultations, what's called video consultations, these kind of things, it might be the new normal to an extent moving forward, or, social distancing, little things like this. The ironic thing is hand hygiene should have already been normal. It's going to be even pushed forward even more moving forward. But, for me, I always try and look at it this way. The year is throwing you some curveballs, but you still have to hit it at the park either way. And, that's why, starting my own podcast, starting everything, and just trying to see what you can do throughout the madness and bring out something and be productive is always what I try and do as a reward, to be honest.
For sure. Yeah. Well, I want to get stuck into some of the variables that might have affected sort of students and new graduates, talk a little bit about what first steps have got in store for us as well in 2021. But before I do that, I was wondering if are there any particular milestones or moments over the course of the calendar year that really stand out for you as things that really change things up, either for you personally, the industry at large, or whatever it might be societally?
Yeah, I'll start with me personally. I'll say again, the projects I've embarked on this year has just coming out of uni have really shaped me going forward. I've taken on a lot of different responsibilities, and I keep myself as busy, even not as busy as you guys, but I think I'll get there very soon with you, with you, Jack. I'll start with the first thing. During mid lockdown and mid pandemic, I was just chilling. I had my dissertation to write, and then I decided, let me do something else, and that's where I decided to start the podcast. Those early 3 months were up and down, figuring out what style I wanted the podcast to be, how much do I also want it to be a blog, what are my limitations, and during that time, loads of time on hand, just sitting around. So I was like, you can do a lot, but then I was also cautious when things start to, when I finish university, dissertation done. It's gonna be a bit different when you're working full time a week. You're not gonna be able to do things. Yeah. So sustaining the podcast has been something I've kept at my forefront, because I think with a lot of projects, and you find even it's easy to start it. The hard part is continuing it. And you guys are a testament to that. I've been a fit for Physio Matters 7 years. I'm sure you've seen come and gone loads of other podcasts, other events. They've come for a month and they've gone for a month. So sustaining that across was very important for myself. Another thing I've taken on is the first steps, which I've been happy to be part of. And we have a wonderful team. Chloe, Amelia, Carol, everyone. We're all trying to chip in and be as productive as we can. Also helping the next generation of next set of students transitioning physios and new physios alike. That's the type of thing we're trying to provide. And I'm sure we'll get into that a bit later in the episode about the new things we're bringing out. We're trying to push forward next year. But that's another project. Another thing I've taken on is Cultural Health Club. With Emmanuel Obola, which is the support system for BAME physiotherapists, trying to provide a safe space, to promote ourselves and push ourselves forward and just do a lot of things. The CSP BAME that we're also working on. All these type of projects are things that I've taken up this year alone. So for a lot of people, it might seem this year has been all bad, but for me, I would say you just have to find a way to spin it and bring it out as good for you as best as you can. And that's what I've tried to do all through the year. And these are the type of things that just keep me racking up. Even with the Cultural Health Club, I'm a mentor. It's like a leveled mentor. So I'm helping out some second year students at the moment. I'm trying to see if they have any advice, just because I'm fresh out of there. But it's a lot of these projects and they keep me busy. And you can see the whiteboard in my background. That's how I keep myself, on track with everything I do, so I don't start falling through the cracks. But yeah, it's been up and down, but I've taken the good out of the year overall.
Fantastic. Yeah, well, you're absolutely right. Massive adversity does bring opportunity, and certainly people step forward and leaders step forward as well. I'm always one that's critical of cheesy hashtag leadership sort of sloganeering, as well as sometimes people congratulating people on good leadership for making a good round of coffees. In your instance, I really do see you and others, especially in the First Steps crowd, and also the cultural health crowd, sort of emerging as people that are then stepping up and saying, look, times of disruption mean that sometimes we've got to put forward what we feel is our best guess of a good idea. And you've done that multiple times in various different ways, as you've just described it. I wanted to ask, because I know maybe I'm projecting here, because I know I'm pretty exhausted. I'm looking forward to winding down on Friday. Whether how successful I'm going to be for that, I don't know, but I'm going to try and down tools on Friday. How are you? Has it taken it out on you, or is the inspiration coming from the new project still juicing you up? How are you getting on with your sort of energy levels at the minute?
I'll be honest. At times, I had, even with work, 2 weeks ago I had a 10-day shift, and I had like 2 days. I had a Thursday and Friday off, which was amazing for me. It was like a 4-day thing. The energy level, sometimes it'll be natural. I'm sure you need to just relax sometimes and just recharge your battery. Either some days I'll just say, what, I'm not doing anything, podcast, editing, none of this type of things. I'm just gonna need to watch some TV and relax, because I find myself every day sitting at this desk. My flatmate will come and he'll see me sitting at this desk every day doing some stuff on my computer. But what gives me motivation is in general projects we embark on. Personally, for some reason, I didn't even realize for myself. I've come out realizing I enjoy editing. I enjoy podcasting, which is weird. I'm sure, Jack Marsh will tell you something about editing that I don't know what his opinion is, how fun he finds editing your podcast. But, I kind of enjoy it, and I'm interested in all these type of things. So but at the same time, I find it as a hobby and, work. So it allows me to, keep it going. But definitely, no doubt, sometimes you just need to relax and wind down and take those few minutes out. Unless if you keep going every day, grind, you're just going to run yourself into a brick wall, and then you're not going to be able to give that longevity, which is the important thing in anything you're embarking on. Like, is sure that as well. Not, being able to sustain the growth, sustain the progress for a longer period of time is paramount to anything you start on.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. And thanks to those that are tuning in live. As we always say, that a lot of people do tune into this after the fact at various different times over the video, and also the podcast if you prefer it just on audio. But those that tune in live, I always like to pose your questions so that you guys can get involved. And so obviously any comments and questions you have for me or Farouk, then please do let us know. But also I just want to ask you guys specifically, if you're listening in live, can you give me your reflections on how you feel your interactions with, say, students and new graduates might have been different this year? That might be as you are a student or new graduate, and therefore, please share your reflections on your experiences. But also in terms of you guys that are otherwise in practice and stuff, is it you've seen less students, more students, different contexts of that, as well as then how it's been different in induction processes for your new graduates, all that sort of stuff. So please do, if you're listening live, then don't be shy to share your thoughts and views in this direction, because that's where we're going next in the chat, really, Farouk, is what has been a really interesting time for you guys to get stuck into this Physio Matters First Steps project, to try and offer translational materials as well as a basic support network for students and new graduates. I mean, it couldn't have been more timely. And I've been so pleased and so proud of the work you guys have been doing, especially because of our relative absence as a team being drawn thin on various different projects. You know, we've been busy with not just Physio Matters, but obviously with Therapy Live stuff means that the sort of support that we would otherwise have been able to afford we weren't able to. But then it turned out you guys just rose to it and certainly didn't need us. So what has tell us about a bit about the project, but also then what you've got in store.
So the First Steps project overall is, initially when you approached us and said, this is what you're thinking about, and then we decided, as you said, is one of my big things for me, adapt and survive, adapt, figure it out, and keep it pushing. Because, as you said, you don't always want to get into a rut where you panic and then say, we need that support. The support was great, initially, and I can imagine with everything you guys do, the extra podcasts you do, you basically, as you said before, your podcast network now, you got Therapy Live multiple times. So it was, for us, it was taking what we've seen, for Physio Matters as a whole have been doing for multiple years, and seeing what can we do to, in the sort of emulate that, but give it our own spin. And as you said, you are right, it has been a case of, we've had multiple people have different things and trying to figure things out individually and trying to put it together as a team. But overall, I think we have, persevered, and we have basically figured it out and given it our own spin so that we can go at a level where we feel, we're still able to provide the content we want to provide for, our target audience, students, transitioning physiotherapists, and new grads alike. And it's that space. It's because I think the team we are provides different context. So we have myself, for example, Chloe, who are freshly out of the new grad school. You have Karis, who has been 2 years post. You have someone like Reese, who is still in university, Amelia, who is in university. So that diversity and that level of wider team is able to give us multiple inputs on different points, so that at no point do we feel that we don't have a voice from this side. Because, as you said, 1 year out of university, you're still out of university. You won't be able to see things as the way someone who is in university now. And particularly during this COVID time where, it's completely different. This third year students are completely different from when I started my third year. You're having to do virtual placement. I didn't know what virtual placements were. I didn't know what they were until Amelia told me that she had some she had virtual placements as well. So getting those perspectives and the team that we have is the driving force that has enabled us to move forward.
No, brilliant. It's been great to see, and certainly something that I still know what's in. There's a brainstorm on a whiteboard that doesn't look dissimilar to yours that I've got a photo of because it's been replaced over, but I've still not had a chance to really share some of those ideas with you guys, in part because I just really wanted to see what emerged. But I see things that the opportunity that knocks for you guys is incredible, and I think the influence you're having on that corner of the industry is phenomenal. I think that there's a real craving for that translation piece, and we've sometimes made mistakes in the past whereby people feel like we're talking past them if they're students and new graduates. It's like, we've even had feedback saying, this, I really enjoyed this podcast. I really look forward to me understanding more of it when I'm more senior physio. And we kind of kick ourselves for thinking like we're, whilst they're not asking us to dumb it down, and they don't need it dumbing down, sometimes the language that we speak and sometimes the niche when we talk about policy or we talk about systems, etc., you're just not in that space really. And so for you guys to be able to offer that translational work, it's just been really good for us.
And I think you got it right there when you said, depending on the level of years of experience and years of practice you have, your dialect and the way you talk maybe a bit different. For example, some of the I'll put my hand up and say some of the times when I listen to a podcast of yours or I listen to some content or generally from the more experienced practitioners, I don't understand everything. So I didn't have to, go back and, figure it out, redo a bit more research. But to someone who's been practicing for over 10 years, it'll be like, yeah, that makes complete sense. And that's just because of the level. So, when we do our content for Physio Matters First Steps, the things we try and make sure we're getting across is, if you notice, the videos we've done is trying to make sure that we understand it, because the way I understand it would be a lot easier for someone who's just coming out as well, because we roughly, and not to get all pedantic, levels and X, Y, and Z, but the way we've just been taught, it'll be a lot easier for me to, communicate what I'm trying to say. And as I said, the team we have, it'll be easier to get the message across. Because ultimately, I think that's the most important thing, is when we're saying something, is the other person able to understand what we're saying immediately, or are they able to appropriately digest that information that we're giving them? And if you look what we are planning for next year, I'll touch on this now, is, we're trying to put out more videos. We have the YouTube channel, which, and the way media has changed now, it's a bit different from the way it was 5-10 years ago. So we're trying to adapt to the time. And I think also we have that beauty where we are in the time as well. So we can really see what people actually want, the way people want to digest information. And the variety of choice is also a beautiful thing that we're trying to do, which means we're going to be trying to do a lot more videos, like, the first steps, quick tips videos. And we're going to be trying to push out a little bit more short 2-minute videos. And we're going to be putting out a bit longer ones for YouTube as well, where we'll be talking about things that, for example, if they talked about it in university, you may be a lecturer didn't explain it in a way you understand. We're going to try and put a student spin on that, or an easier way for you to probably digest that information. For example, let's take, SOAP notes. Some people, when you go into placements, or they're not entirely sure how the process is, and it takes them a while before you figure out, what should you put, what should you not put, or how to put it in. So that's how I think we want to make a bit more clear, making referrals if you're a student on placement, or being able to ask your educator, say, how do I make this referral? Or what referrals do we have? This type of things, just little prompts we're trying to provide as content, so that people can say, when you go on placement, for example, or you're in class, you say, yeah, I remember the video that we did, and the first steps did that. And there'll be just little things. And, it doesn't have to be gangbusting kind of thing. It just has to be, even if it's little things you're getting from it. And moving forward, we're going to be trying to do a lot of, open sessions where people can come on and ask questions, either be it clinical to an extent and non-clinical. If maybe you're about to go on a trauma and orthopedic placement and you're not sure what to expect or what to ask or how to go about it, we'll try and do an open session where you can just come on, ask that question, and everyone will be there to listen to our answer. And I think, as I said, we have a good amount of experience on the team as well, so that we can be able to answer it. Even if I can't answer, because I don't know everything, someone else might be able to. Chloe might be able to give you better advice. David might be able to give you advice, but everyone is going to be learning at that point. So that's one thing that we're going to be trying to do a lot more going next year. And, newsletters and X, Y, and Z, just trying to make sure that people still feel like they are supported and they can understand and learn as we go along.
Has it been, when you're doing this stuff, has it ever felt quite exposing? Because sometimes we hear from students, I bet you guys are as well, whereby people feel like sometimes they don't want to, because they're they're relatively new to it and therefore they're learning. Sometimes they feel like sharing their opinion online is going to leave them vulnerable to suggestions that they've kind of got shortcomings, which they kind of know they have because they're young in the profession, and people feel like this across all time frames. But I just wondered, for you personally and also as a team, you guys have been pretty bold in saying, look, this is our take on the matter. We're not pretending it's polished, but you've allowed yourself that bravery and you've just cracked on with it. Has there ever been times where you or the team have sort of wobbled in that direction and it's felt a bit too exposing?
Yeah, I think you're right there. It's the barrier that eventually, people always have to break. It's also annoying because, sometimes, to be honest, physiotherapy and, healthcare community sometimes it can be brutal. We have our moments where, it's wonderful and nice and everyone's patting themselves on the back and everyone's, lovely flowery things. And I'm all for it, but sometimes as well, you might say something and you might have 100 people raining down on you saying this is wrong or this is wrong. Yeah. And it's the dichotomy of the profession. But for us as well personally, even I myself, when I make some of the videos, I always look over it. When I made the video, I'll read over my quick script. I think let me make sure I don't start saying things. But at the end of the day, it's also recognizing. I think as a team, we've realized that you don't have to be right every time, and you have to be willing to take two. Even if you say something that is wrong, if someone says, "Oh, I don't agree with this," you have to hear what they're saying. Why don't you agree with it? And have to take it from there. That's how civilized conversation should work. And it shouldn't be, I make a wrong point. Because as I said, we're all human beings. We're bound to say something, mistake, and you put out a video, but it's already out there. And initially, during those first steps, you're thinking, I said first steps. I said initially during those first steps, you're thinking, you want to make sure that everything is perfect. But it could never really be perfect because, someone out there is going to disagree with some of the points you make. And it's accepting that. And once I think we, as a team, we accepted that, we're going to put out some things that people don't particularly agree with. And we can have a discussion around that. And you can tell me why you don't agree. I don't have to agree with what if you're not agreeing. But, that's how conversation should work. And, we can have a mutual agreement as opposed to raining down on my parade and telling me you're wrong, you're a bad physio, X, Y, and Z, and you guys don't have any worth. And once we overcame that barrier, it becomes a lot easier. I'm sure you, being 7 years in this game and doing the podcast, you said some things that, probably people don't agree with. And I'm sure that's the way it is. But I know you said some things people don't agree with, but you can defend your points. You can listen to why they don't agree, and you can take it from there. You can either choose to agree or disagree.
Sure. Well, and that's been really nice to see that maturity from you guys. And it's not a coincidence for us to have sort of tried to select a few of you into it. Now, of course, you guys are completely then in charge of your further recruitment. But, the guys that were first involved and who I was then sounded out on, you were all of a persuasion that meant that you were going to be open to ideas, but also willing to at least put things out there. And that balance is tough. And so you've done it very well. I think your point there about how, if there's something that comes out, especially from, say, the First Steps crowd, if there's people that then berate and ridicule it straight out the gates, then that's their problem. It's a bizarre mindset, isn't it? Fortunately, we've not hopefully seen much of that. But then similarly, if they we also don't want people to hold you guys to low expectations in such a way that if they disagree, they decide not to say it because they're coddling you. That's no good either. So instead, it's only natural that people would be challenging you, and that's good that if they do, as long as then that dialogue then furthers the conversation. And it really does seem to, really offer that balance to try and move the conversation forward, which of course is what Physio Matters is about, but also makes it more accessible and a way in which students and new graduates can really feel that they can get stuck in without feeling as exposed as maybe they would have done otherwise. We've had some lovely comments coming in here, and Farouk, she said, Joe Turner said, absolutely, Farouk, it's not just students who can feel afraid to share. She said, she meant good on you for tackling this at this stage in your careers. The rest of us can learn from you. I think that we absolutely can, and that bravery is relevant. It's kind of that. What would you advise people early in their career, be that students or new graduates, with that are sort of even stalled for getting in touch with you guys because they feel like they don't want to put their head above the parapet? What would you advise them?
Honestly, thank you very much, Joe, for the kind words as well. This is something I've realized personally. We do get messages from First Step. We get to our Instagram. We get people asking us questions. Maybe they want to be a part of it. They're just happy of the things we put out. And I want anyone who's listening to this, you can always reach out to us. We are a big team and we're very friendly. I'll be honest with you, we're actually very friendly. The way we've gelled together. This is a group of people you put together. Most of us had no contact with each other before, and now we're basically friends. Some of our things are basically just catch up. Early in your career, it's perfectly normal. I went through that as well. I think I don't know if I'm still going through that as well, where I'm scared or to an extent to reach out. And I will give this quick example of how it's very interesting how I actually got in contact with you was where I just reached out to Jack Marsh and I said, I know you guys have been doing the podcast since. I think I reached out to you first or him, I can't remember, but I said, I need some advice, or could you provide some advice? And
I've just lost Farouk for a second there. I don't know if it's me or
Jack was very helpful. We just signed a quick Zoom chat.
I've lost Farouk for a second there. Hopefully I can bring him back in. But Farouk, can you hear me? I think he's back. Sorry, we lost you or I did at least. I lost you where you were saying about you reached out to me or Jack and we couldn't remember which it was, and then we lost you. So just repeat that point if you don't mind.
Yeah, no worries. So I reached out and I just asked, do you have any advice or tips for someone who wants to start a podcast? And you're very helpful to help me out there. You didn't know me, he didn't know who I was, but that's the type of thing that you can find. And sometimes just having that bravery to say, let me just send out a message. And that's how I get most people on my podcast. I just send out a message and hope. And I said, you know what, because if I don't send the message, I'll never know if they say yes or no. But if I send it out, and luckily, people, I think generally people can be nice, especially when you've had the same support before in your career. You're more willing to help other people as well. So anyone who's thinking about, sending first steps question, for trying to be more involved, and that's another big thing that we're going to be doing next year, is trying to get more people involved in first steps, in the sense of, we're going to be trying to be doing collaborative work. So if you send us a message, for example, and say, yo, I want to get involved, we can bring you in for one of our next videos, and we can even let you, take the forefront if you have an interesting story to share or an interesting point to make, and you just want to use us as a platform to bring yourself out there as well. So that's one thing we want to really try and do next year. And then particularly, as I know, as Joe said, people down the career also have this fear of when you go out and put yourself online, it might be a bit scary. But as well as students coming out, when you just come into Twitter or you just come into Instagram and you're not sure how to navigate the whole world, or how to get your points across, that's what we want to try and do, because I think there are loads of people out there, students alike, that have very interesting perspectives on different points, but they won't be heard because they don't have that platform, or they don't have the ability. So we want to try and bring as many people as possible to hear from different people, and at the same time you're learning, we're learning as well, and other people as well around the world are learning as well from us.
Absolutely. No, it's been fascinating to see you guys develop, and I suppose something I don't think I've even told you, mate, but I'll announce it now, and then we can tell you the rest of your project gang, is that you guys have certainly far surpassed the expectation that we had when we sort of put you guys together. I'm so pleased to hear that you're all friends. I'm not surprised, because it was just such compatibility between you, and the ways in which we can try and offer some sort of nominal reward for you guys surpassing our expectations means that Physio Matters First Steps will be getting its own website, courtesy of us, as well as several other different things that we're going to be able to fund for the project. And so we're going to be helping to boost your voice, so that then that doesn't all need to fall on your shoulders. Obviously, we tried to provide you with a little bit of nominal infrastructure, and pointing you in the right direction. But now, having done what you guys have done, know that you've got our shoulder fully behind the wheel of your work now. And in the new year, we've actually got some ways in which we really feel that we're going to be able to broaden your reach, which is exciting. So please do pass that on to the rest of your gang, and that me and Jim will be attending, as long as you'll have us for at least 5 minutes. We'll be attending your next meeting to tell you a little bit about what we've got in store.
That's amazing. That's just great to hear, to be honest. Anywhere we can push out a message as much as we can, we're always willing to hear. That's good news, actually. I'm sure the team will be glad to hear, because it is things we've been thinking about for a while now. So brilliant. Thanks.
Well, yeah, there's a few different things that you guys have had all the best ideas, so we obviously just want to try and help support them, but that includes, of course, then us helping to fund them as well. But just as we sum up there, I've just noticed the time, and also Evie's waiting patiently in the lobby there, which is great. So we're going to get her involved in a second. But Farouk, just tell people a little bit about how they can find out more about First Steps, and also about you personally.
So to find out about First Steps, we have our Instagram, which is PM First Steps. I'll put that in the tweet. We'll tweet at Jack and the Physio Matters Podcast. So we have our Twitter, we have our Instagram, which is also PM First Steps, and we have our YouTube. So I would suggest those are the three ways you can reach out to us on. Well, Twitter and Instagram, we are always, answering messages. Someone will always be there to answer your message, and which is always helpful. So that's where you can reach us. Subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can, get the videos when we start releasing them out next year as much as possible. And also myself, I do host the Rooks Health Podcast, which is my own project, which I've been working on since mid this year, which you can find as a podcast on anywhere you listen to podcasts, and you can follow on Twitter and Instagram at Rooks Health, and that's where you can reach me. I've released multiple podcast episodes and more coming out in the next few weeks. So that's where you can get us.
Now, let's say it's useful to be some public accountability for me as well. I've promised Farouk I'd go on his show at some point, and now that I'm going to declare on air, of course I will. Then that has got to happen now. So you can hold my feet to the fire. So it'd be a pleasure, and I'm really pleased to see both your personal development as well as then what the projects that you're involved in are doing for the profession, and just generally, of course, with patients' best interests at heart. So really, thank you for all you're doing. It's been brilliant, mate. Have a great day.
Thanks a lot, Jack. Likewise. Have a good day, everyone.
Cheers. Okay, that's Farouk Bello. If you haven't paid attention to his work before, then I hope you will do now. He's a spectacular guy, as well as then, as you'll notice from paying attention to Physio Matters First Steps, they're just absolutely brilliant up-and-comers, and I'm so excited to be completely out of a job when he and others manage to take the podcast game and other things by storm. I'll be completely redundant, and I'm looking forward to it. As I mentioned before, we've got our next guest, so this is a bumper special episode reflecting on the year, is Evie Martin. So hopefully I'm going to be able to move her in a second. Just click around a bit, and hopefully Evie can hear us. Evie, can you hear me?
I can. Hiya, Jack.
Great stuff. Lovely. Well, welcome to the show. We've just been, just before I jumped on with Farouk, me and you were just chatting for your YouTube channel. You're involved in, and well, you launched Physios Online as well as Get Better Online this year. As a means of, from what I can tell, raising standards in virtual therapies, which of course was very timely in many ways. Could you just introduce yourself for the listeners, for those that might not have heard of you or your projects so far?
Yeah. Well, I am Evie Martin. Myself and my wife, Christine, we set up a website back at the start of lockdown called Physios Online. Basically, the idea was to help physios who wanted to do video consultations to reach people like through a website. So yeah, it turned out that I absolutely love doing video consultations. I had started doing them before COVID. So so I had set up a little network of physios over here in Norway, where I live. And as soon as we got that set up, then all of our clinics opened up again. And so I thought, well, I might as well do the same thing in like Ireland and the UK. Started doing it in the UK, and then loads of sort of really great people just started joining up, and Physios Online was born from there. Fantastic. So as I say, it was born of the COVID crisis, but will probably last way beyond. So basically what I'm trying to do is just, the way that it works, it's like a collaborative, it's like a network of physiotherapists, where the aim is that each physiotherapist in the network tries to raise up the other members of the collective. So it's like free to join. There's no subscription or anything like that. But what we do is we try to raise up physiotherapists, particularly those who are trying to do the best possible video consults they can. It was very relevant at the start of lockdown. Now everyone's used to video consultation, so it's sort of evolved into something else, I guess. Now it's just sort of a project of it's just building a group of physios who are all interested in internet-based healthcare, I guess. And we also have a face-to-face referral network. Sure. So that if your patient is seeing you online through video consult, that you will then be able to refer to someone in the face-to-face network if you feel that your patient needs to be seen face-to-face.
No, that's great. And that integration of those two styles of care or two delivery modalities is really useful. I'm interested in why, because obviously we kind of all know instinctively that it was something that in a rush everyone needed to flex into, but you were one of a few voices that were passionate about this being a care delivery mechanism, that the fact that people were going to need to be exposed to it because of necessity. You were someone, and you and others were saying that this is an opportunity for us to reflect and learn as to what best practice is and how much of that can be appropriately used and delivered through virtual consults. So what do you feel it is that's at the heart of MSK clinical practice that you feel the opportunity knocked well at the start of lockdown?
Well, I mean, for me, I just think that all or many of the best parts of physiotherapy can be delivered by video consult. So, in terms of really good listening to your patient, communication, exercise, that type of thing. Like I feel like all the really great parts of physiotherapy are absolutely able to be done by video consult. And like the thing is, to me, it wasn't some sort of a second best thing or like a, this backup thing that you have to do, just because you weren't able to see people face to face. So because I'd already started seeing people on video before COVID, I kind of already knew that it worked. I already knew that it was a good way to go. So the reason why I started seeing people by video was just there was one patient a man with a traumatic brain injury. He found it really difficult to travel to my clinic to come and see me. You know, I live in Norway. He had to take like a ferry and a taxi and all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
And he was my first patient that I saw in video consult, because himself and his assistant, they were absolutely delighted to just to do video consults. And then, you know, I started seeing other people this way. So, you know, older ladies who didn't want to drive on icy roads, and, you know, even school age patients who didn't want to miss time from school. So yeah, it was just convenient for many of my patients. And I suppose the best way to say it is, I think it was Laura Rathbone on Twitter. She said something like, you know, we gain more than we lose with video consultations. So yeah, maybe we can't do whatever hands-on, you know, interventions you would have liked to do with your patient, but we gain so much. And especially in the context of a pandemic, that to me, it was just, yeah, it just made so much sense. And I suppose at the start as well, I couldn't understand why everyone wasn't absolutely just, you know, shouting from the rooftops about the benefits of video consults. I mean, I know I'm not the first one to have thought of this. There were other people in the UK who had been doing video consults successfully, you know, before COVID as well. And I don't know really why I, of all people in Norway, decided that this was just going to be my passion project, and I just wanted all physios to like embrace this technology. It just made sense to me, because we had this weird situation where you had just thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands of people all over the country who were literally confined to their homes. It was like a huge, horrible mass experiment of what to do with a population by confining them to their own homes. And then you also had like thousands of physiotherapists who were just, you know, absolutely terrified about what the future would bring. They'd lost their income overnight, and they had the skills and they had the technology, you know. So yeah, we had the physios with the skills and the technology. We had the patients who needed help. So all that was needed was just to bring these two things together. And I was like, well, we need to do this. And yeah, so that's why I did it. And I wasn't just thinking in terms of MSK either. I was mostly interested in helping like neurophysios and peds physios and those sorts of clinicians to reach patients. I mean, some of the physios who joined at the start and continue to now, but I mean, you know, we have physiotherapists who've been helping. You know, I had a conversation there's a pediatric physio called Lorna Saunders. She's in the group. She was one of a really strong supporter of us. And I mean, she's helped an infant with neonatal stroke by video consultation through lockdown. And I couldn't understand it when I was going on Twitter or going on Facebook and trying to, you know, shout about the value of video consultations, and kind of getting a bit of pushback from MSK clinicians saying, oh, what about, you know, the value of hands-on? And yeah, you know, we're kind of, I don't know, I couldn't understand the pushback when there were so many people who could be helped by this like technology. So I just got a real, like, it just kind of lit a fire in me.
Yeah, I feel that it was like a bit.
Answer the question. That just went to me. One about my favorite topic, which is physios doing video consults. So sorry about that, Jack.
I don't apologize for that. No, it's great, and that's where your passion lies. I think it was interesting to see, and I've witnessed that continue, that there are certain elements of pushback or resistance to that change. I think that there are a spectrum of different levels of legitimacy or validity to these criticisms from people that are otherwise, essentially their style of practice and their style of reasoning is such that they just physically couldn't deliver a care model of anything that replicates them or what their patient expectations would be over virtual, in part because they fundamentally are the sorts of folk that often we nod to on this show as being ones that perceive that they're doing more structural change with their hands. They perceive the fact that the diagnosis or illness behaviors that the patient is exhibiting is down to something that needs to be overtly corrected, ideally by them. And therefore,
I think you're right. I think that's a big part of why some people really didn't embrace this, and why still, even going forward, it just won't be for everyone. You know, at the start, I was a bit naive, kind of thinking every physio is just going to love doing video consults. Once they get the hang of it, you know, they're going to really enjoy it. But no, actually, I I think that you're right. For some, it's just not a part of their identity. This is not how they see physiotherapy. This is not how they see themselves working. And I think that's quite fine. You know, we can't all be Bill Taylor, who's one of the other physios who I've described as the Madonna of physiotherapy, because he's reinvented himself many times in many different ways, and he's just done fantastically on video consult as well. Or Dr. Christopher Norris, textbook author. He's been, you know, working for I don't know how many years now, very experienced. Christopher Norris is definitely a physiotherapist who is, I suppose we'd say, hands-on. This is a man who teaches manual therapy and acupuncture. You know, you wouldn't think that this would be a person who would be very keen on video consultations, but absolutely yes, because he said this is the tool that I have now to reach my patients and help them. And he's also very passionate about exercise and rehabilitation. That's where he started out. So, you know, to me, I really admire that. You have a person who's worked a particular way for a long time and then says, but this is the situation now. This is what my patients require of me now. And this is what I'm going to do, and do it bloody well. And that's what he did. And that's what that's what pretty much everyone in Physios Online has done.
Yeah, well, Chris Norris is a good example. I really like Chris's work, and it's something that he's certainly one word that you associate to him is versatile, you know, and it was great to see once again, wash, rinse, repeat. Chris Norris is sort of flexing and being thoughtful about new tools and new styles of delivery. So no, that's been great. I think on the other side of the spectrum of, you know, I feel like there is some styles of criticism that kind of shine a light on practices that otherwise we hope would be not redundant, but also something that we'd try and move past, that essentially can't be replicated online, and not being rehab centric in their functional approach to care. But then on the other side of it, and I'd be one of these people that essentially is something that it's all well and good being passionate about it, and also the abundance of evidence that demonstrate we can get similar outcomes in MSK practice, particularly from virtual consults. There is then this broad sense of market force and expectation from patients and society at large that might mean that there's this broad educational exercise needs to occur for them to understand and to value that style of care. Because if that doesn't also move, then you're literally not able to keep the lights on. And that you've got practices that exist not as Zoom studios, but as practices and as gyms, etc. And so you've then got this time frame or whatever that needs to pass for that to happen. And so that's why it might present as resistance, but actually it's just the nature of the real politic of the situation. Oh, I've not got your audio there, Evie. Sorry, just repeat that a second. Sorry, your audio kicked out.
You're all right. Yeah, I lost you as well for a moment. I don't know if you lost me too, but we seem to be back now.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of sort of, I suppose the short way to say it is to sell this to patients, and really to have people actually want to use video consults. Okay, look, I suppose I'm going to try not to be too blunt about this, but I suspect that I have a suspicion that if patients don't particularly embrace video consultations, that it might be more a matter of really the physiotherapist's preference or interaction with the technology, rather than necessarily the fact that there's a problem with the medium itself. Like, basically, if you're a physio who loves doing video consultations, you're really good at them, I think your patients are going to be quite happy with video consultations. This has been my own experience. So sometimes when I see people saying, oh, you know, patients don't want video consultations, this is not, you know, there's not a market for it or whatever, I do kind of, I think that there's another explanation apart from just, no, patients don't want to do video consults. I think one slight problem that we might come up against is that if many people have bad experiences with virtual healthcare during the lockdown, I would not like for that to then color their impression of the potential for virtual healthcare. Like, I don't want people to have a bad experience with a phone or video consult physiotherapist and think that this is the best that, you know, this is the best that video consultations can be. So that's also part of the mission of Physios Online. You know, I want as many people as possible to be exposed to really good virtual healthcare with physiotherapists who really want to get the best out of this technology. So that's why the people who have joined, and the people who have joined are generally, I suppose they're really quite successful in their fields. They're people who are good at what they do. I suppose it's sort of, joining Physios Online, it is a collaborative network. So it tends to attract people who don't feel particularly competitive with other physiotherapists. Sure. In order to not be competitive, you need to be good enough. You need to have reached a certain point in your, whatever you might be, your art, I suppose. You need to be at a certain point in your art or in your profession that you're so good that you're not really competing with others. So again, people like Bill Taylor or like Linda Padley, people who are in the collective. Anyway, I got to thinking there about them, but I've totally rambled off my point. But what was I going to say there? No, I have no idea what the question even was at the start. But yeah. So basically, the idea is
you've answered it. I promise.
The idea is that if someone is looking for video consultations, which people will be. Let's face it. I think already people are starting to look for video consultations. I've had people contact me specifically for a video consultation because they don't want to take time off work or whatever.
Sure.
And as people do that and they find physiotherapists online, my hope would be that they find Physios Online and end up with one of the physiotherapists in this collective who does a really, really good job of giving them the best quality video consult. And that hopefully that will then generally color people's overall impressions of what virtual physio can be and what physiotherapy is. And, expanding out from that, I hope that video consults in general will just change the public's whole perception of what a physiotherapist can do, of what a physiotherapist is, I mean, I remember at the start of lockdown, when me and Christine were putting this website together and we were trying to come up with the wording for the website. And she was saying, for some people, saying video physio is going to be like suggesting to them that they go to a virtual dentist. Like, it's just going to be ridiculous. They're not going to understand what you're on about. They have a totally different view of physio. So I think that's a really positive thing, that if people see physiotherapists through video consultation and see what they can actually do over video, they'll have a different view of our profession. So that's my optimistic hope for what virtual can do for our profession.
Brilliant. Yeah, I want to. There's certainly plenty in there I agree with, but I would say that there is a difference between the returning patients. So say there's someone who's got an existing style of practice and they've got a patient on their caseload or someone that's had a previous body part injured that then says they do something virtually, partly because that was mandated during the height of the lockdown. They then might say, I prefer to come and see you face to face. And we kind of know that there's going to be people that it's because you're not able to realign my pelvis over the internet, so I need to come back in, right? So I'm definitely with you there. But I would say as a general market force, say for new customers, right, new business, new patients that might then just have a sore bit and therefore they're seeking out care, I don't necessarily think the quality or competence of the clinician on virtual is even in play as a variable that's affecting their consumer behavior, because their perception of physio, like you've just joked about, is that, well, I wouldn't see a virtual dentist when there's a face-to-face dentist available, just because that, and we that's kind of what I meant about we need to change the cultural shift that needs to occur for them to conceive of us better. Is definitely a piece that needs to be put in play. But as time needs to pass for that to occur, I would say that there's still this gap that will arise, not just because of people's real perception of an actual clinic, but just the perception of the profession or the industry at large. I just wonder what your thoughts are about that. Is there a point of disagreement between us there or not?
I don't see any really clear point of disagreement. I think what you're saying is that at the moment there are more people are still wanting to do face-to-face consultations than video. Is that what you mean?
In part because of the variables that you've described, but in part as well because of their perception of the industry, which is going to take time to change. And whilst that doesn't, when you've got a virtual offering and a face-to-face offering, then the fact that they select that isn't necessarily an indictment on the clinician.
No, you're right. I think it is. It's to do with the perception of the profession. So I guess from that point of view, all we can really do, or at least what I've been trying to do, is to try to get the message out. So speak to physiotherapists about what they do on video consultations. Speak to patients as well. You know, I've had some really fantastic interviews, really good talks with some patients who have spoken about their experiences of virtual healthcare. I spoke with a lady who had MS, one of the physios in the Physios Online group. I asked her patient to speak with me, and we made a video from it, you know, in which she talks about how much of a help it was to her to be able to get video physiotherapy instead of traveling in to see her physio. I also spoke with a lady and her son. Her son had dyspraxia, so that was one of the pediatric neuro physios in the group. It was her patient. I've spoken with Pete Moore as well, you know, the patient advocate. He's obviously a fairly strong proponent for internet-based healthcare. He himself, I think, had, you know, transferred his pain toolkit and all that sort of thing over to online for other reasons as well, for environmental reasons and convenience reasons and stuff. So there are a lot of ways to get the message across to patients. And I think we just need to keep on doing that. That's what I'm trying to do anyway, is to speak to physiotherapists who have, you know, really embraced this technology, and also to other people who have good experiences of it. And I think many of the physios, you know, in our community have helped with that. You know, most of the people in Physios Online have spoken to me about how they have treated patients by video. Everyone from neuro to palliative care, you know, oncology physios have talked about their work on video as well.
It's been brilliant, and that, I think those examples and those case studies that you've been able to bring to the fore has been a really helpful insight for people that sometimes might have been easy. It might have been easy for them to say, well, that might work for that style of practice, that discipline, that sector within care. Actually, it doesn't apply to me. Whereas the versatility of the tool is something you've been able to demonstrate really well. So thanks for that. We've got a few questions coming in. Luke Murray says the dream team. I don't know about that.
They are the dream team. They're really like the Physios Online, the group. Yeah, Luke is in there. Luke is terrific. He's not an established, you know, he doesn't have an established private practice, but you know, unlike many of the others in the group, but he's just been so fantastic at supporting and kind of shouting about the project. He really believes in it too. So he's great, and he helped me before coming on here to calm down my nerves.
Oh, that's good of him. He's certainly someone who's a really useful emergent voice who's really
Luke
in
is
MSK
so clever and kind, and he's really Luke on Twitter is @IrishPhysio, so you should definitely check him out.
Yeah, well, there's a countryman bias that we're sensing there as well.
The Irish kind of
totally fine with Laura Rathbone, who was mentioned earlier. A great point that she made about we gain more than we lose, which is a lovely quote, and she's then quoting what I think was Chris Norris. She's saying, "This is the tool that I have now," which is
Laura is really. It's just one of the best things about setting up Physios Online is all these just like really interesting people I've met along the way. Laura is just fantastic and really interesting to talk to. She always makes me think about stuff that I have not thought about before. Yeah, she's great. Thanks, Laura.
Dan Gerber said, as someone that thought of themselves as a manual therapist primarily, I couldn't believe how easily I took to online consults. 80% of what done in clinic can be done online, but not all that need the 20% not all need the 20% that's then done in clinic. So Dan's sort of suggesting that it was a tool that he was able to flex into more than he realized. Have you heard that story from a few folk? That they were skeptical?
Definitely. Yeah, that's the story that I hear most often, you know, from people who are surprised at how well video consults went for them. They sort of go, oh my gosh, I couldn't believe that I could help people so much by video, that type of thing.
And Becky said the same, even as a soft tissue therapist. She said, I genuinely didn't expect any of my clients to go online for consultations, but they did and found it really valuable. It breaks down so many barriers for the client to get to see you. And also, again, great for these misconceptions of what MSK care is. If people are usually going in for very overt hands-on care to a soft tissue therapist that's expected.
The other thing is, Jack, you know, as MSK clinicians, I think by now we're all fairly aware of the biopsychosocial model, or, you know, as I think a better term is the socio-psychobiological model. I know people say that it doesn't matter, but I prefer to call it the socio-psychobiological model. But, you know, we like to talk about it, and then something comes along where you can literally be in your Luke, you can literally be in your patient's own environment, in their home. They will invite you into their own into their own environment. Now, as far as I can tell, I don't think that it gets very much more psychosocial than that, if you want. I mean, this is where your patient is inviting you into their home and you're able to see where they are. You see, sometimes you see people around them. I've had great consultations where I'm working with them and a family member, for example. Like, I think it's like a cool new job where there's so many extra elements of your job as a physiotherapist. You can be so creative. You can use their environment. You can involve the people around them. I just think it's it's fantastic.
It's been quite a nice thing. I remember I had a patient a few weeks back whereby they said, I've got a funny, asked about stairs, how are you managing on the stairs? Fairly elderly patient. And they said, I've got a bit of a funny staircase actually, and I'm finding it difficult. I was just like, show me. And so of course, taking me to said staircase, because it was unlikely that if they'd have been in clinic, they'd have had a picture of their staircase on their phone, or they'd have had to have started to so it was little bits like that can really make a difference. And it is quite intimate, I agree. And I think we've got to be thoughtful about that in terms of what people are doing, inviting us into their homes, and also the way in which that they're engaging with it. It's great for access, but it's also something that those things we need to not run roughshod over, and we need to be thoughtful about the social context in which we're actually applying our care, how it's different. One last thing, because we do need to wrap up. Thank you so much for those that have contributed and commented. Please keep your comments coming. Of course, any feedback welcome. But I just wanted to say that one of the things that I noticed in myself recently, as well as we've started to go back to some face-to-face care and doing rehab in the gym and stuff again, is that there are certain patients that come in for an assessment, and you could understand that people are often saying like face-to-face versus virtual, and trying to make sure we optimize both. But actually, at the moment, you've got virtual versus face-to-face masked care. And so me and patient in a mask in clinic, and the way in which I'm able to read and they're able to read my emotions, and the way in which I'm having to modify my communication because they're not able to see my expressions and vice versa, means that there's actually a compromise that's occurring face-to-face at the moment in PPE that doesn't need to occur across a screen. And in a couple of moments I've had in face-to-face new patient assessments where we've needed to get into some deeper meaningfuls, and I've had to modify my behavior because they can't see my face and vice versa. I, in that instance, would definitely have preferred a screen between us rather than a mask. And I think that's a variable that's being undervalued at the minute.
Yeah, I absolutely 100% agree. Even without, over here, we're not required to wear the full, visor and all that kind of stuff. So all I'm wearing is just a face covering, a basic surgical mask. And even I prefer, and many of my patients continue to prefer, to just stay on video instead of looking at each other through a mask.
Absolutely. As much as I look better in a mask, of course, which is something that my patients enjoy telling me. But thanks so much for your time, Evie. Really appreciate it. And tell people where they can find out more about you and your project.
Yeah, you can follow on Twitter. I am at Online Physios. The website is physiosonline.co.uk. If you are a physiotherapist who wants to join us, you are very welcome. At the moment, we're only taking in new people for the kind of face-to-face referral network, but we'll probably be adding more physiotherapists to the video group as time goes along. I also run a kind of side project called Get Better Online, which has others who are not physiotherapists. So we have, a pain consultant and sports rehabilitator and dietitian, psychology, and different sort of more of a multidisciplinary group. So that's getbetteronline.co.uk. And all of this is my wife. If you think that I'm some kind of internet genius, I'm not. My wife made us the websites, and she is really the one doing most of the work.
Well, yes, absolutely. And as I said to you before, thank you to you and your wife for a brilliant project. It's always brilliant to see some true entrepreneurial flair, especially at times of adversity and times of need. Your timing was perfect, and we're so thankful for you to do so. Excited to see how that develops, and please know that you've got this platform and any that we own in order to make sure we amplify some of the work that you're doing, because it's been great to see.
I appreciate that. And thanks yourself for coming on my little podcast thing earlier, or it's not a podcast, whatever it is. Thanks for coming on and talking to me.
No problem. Yeah, obviously everyone keep an eye out for that. Evie gave me a bit of a grilling. The tides were turned earlier today. So yeah, thanks a lot. And Liz Bailey sums up for all of us. Well done, Evie. Brill project. Absolutely agree. Thank you, all of you. And do join me tomorrow with Rob Bevan as we touch on some of the reflections from a business point of view, as well as a bit of an announcement from us as to what me and Rob have got in store for 2020 in that direction for therapy businesses. So many thanks. I really appreciate it. And I'll see you tomorrow. For those that haven't noticed on social media as well, I'm doing a free-for-all on Friday as I summarize the year on, touching on all the key moments. And I'm going to be sending the link out to whoever fancies joining me. So we're going to have a bit of a Christmas party for the final Chewing It Over of the year on Friday. So Evie, if this hasn't been too traumatic, of course, you're welcome back on Friday.
All right.
Take care. Thanks a lot. See you soon.
Bye.